We are all about being formed by Jesus together for others. And now we're talking through how do we do this piece by piece. So one way we could have titled this series is How We Change or How We Transform. So in previous years, it was like, just do these 9 practices. Now we're trying to take a bigger zoom out. There is a way to just do the practices and still miss the point. Mm-hmm. So 2 Sundays ago, we're just jumping right into it. You feeling good?
Yeah, feel good.
This is Pastor Caleb, if you don't know. So 2 Sundays ago, we talked about teaching and the importance that some of our problems are just straight up intellectual. Like biblical illiteracy is destroying people, right? And we need to make sure that we're renewing our minds. I do appreciate we've had enough people ask to where I think it's just worth mentioning as we begin. People have been asking, what are some good podcasts to renew my mind? So let's not give them decision fatigue, like too many options. I'll pick one.
Oh boy.
You pick one. And I know what your one is. So if someone's looking to renew their mind, to learn more about the teachings of Scripture, what podcasts would you suggest? Because you and I are more books than podcasts, but there are podcasts that are influential and helpful. Yeah. What would your one rec be?
My one, I told you this yesterday, was I think this is true. If you're looking for information on how to read and interpret and be informed by the Bible, I think the Bible Project podcast is probably my go-to, my biggest rec. So what they do is really cool because they have different series. So you can listen to, maybe there's like anywhere between 3 episodes to like 12 episodes per series, but they'll take a biblical book or a theme or a genre or a word or something like that. And most people know Bible Project does those animated videos, but behind those videos is just a whole like plethora of resources and research that they utilize to put into those videos, into making those videos. And so the podcast is a great, I think, supplement to that, where you can hear them just talk about all the stuff that didn't make it into the videos. Then that's a great launching pad. They often reference tons of books and authors and scholars that you can then go and look at if you want to learn more of. But what I like about the Bible Project is it's not very preachy. Like, it's not like you're not listening to a sermon. You're listening to 2 people talk about the Bible. One of them is like Tim Mackey's legit Bible scholar. And the other guy kind of plays the role of like the skeptic a little bit. He'll ask questions and say like, what does this mean? What do you mean when you say this? And so I think it's really accessible, but it's very informative.
Yeah, that's a great rec. We were supposed to visit their studio one time and it didn't work out. Or was that the time I went without you? I think it's the time I went without you.
No, we were supposed to go.
Yeah. But a friend of mine is friends with Tim Mackey. And so when we were having, what were we eating? It was great Asian food. What was it? Remember with Bo?
Oh, Thai. It was Thai Pod.
Was it Thai?
Thai Pod in Portland.
Great Thai food.
Shout out Thai Pod.
He was saying how Tim Mackey told him if the question was like, what should I teach my children? Like, why aren't you, there should be a Bible Project for kids. And he was like, if I had the time and capacity to do that, the main thing I would teach my children is themes. Mm-hmm. And so that's something you love to teach on, and you're always going back to Genesis, right? So I think that's great. So for the podcast that I would recommend, only one. I think this would be helpful because I think when us being a lot about formation, I think there's other things that maybe we don't, I know I'm not as wired to address as often as like something like apologetics, but I think it's helpful. So one podcast I find just really helpful is called Questioning Christianity with Tim Keller. Now, Tim Keller has passed away, so this isn't the last time this was updated was in 2022. Oh, never mind. No, that's when it came out. So it's 2022. So it's not even that many episodes, but it's based off of a book that he wrote that addresses apologetics. I think it's really, really just a great podcast. So it's a podcast you can actually start and finish eventually. So it's really good. It's called Questioning Christianity with Tim Keller. Tim Keller is on my Mount Rushmore of pastors.
I think he's on, well, maybe not. I think he's on most people's Mount Rushmore. He should be.
He should be, yeah. So those are the 2 podcast recs to help renew your mind. Let's now talk about community. And we want to keep reminding each other, like I mentioned in the sermon, community in and of itself isn't the whole thing. However, you cannot truly be transformed without community. So we've been arguing it's these 5 streams that bring about life. It's these 5 pieces, but community is essential. So what are some of your opening thoughts, takeaways from Sunday? things on community as we start. I know you didn't listen to the sermon, but
You always say that. I think you tend to look over at me, or you say my name at the one part that I'm zoning out or taking a note or writing something else.
when it's every time I say your name, I learn that it's not a timing thing. It's just reality.
Around the 23-minute mark, I just stop listening. No, it was really good. I'm trying to remember what the sermon was.
Wonderful. I'll read the overview you made for my sermon.
Great.
It's that was humbling, by the way. I'm feeling good today. We're now doing these podcasts on Wednesdays, so it's less fresh than normal.
Yeah.
It's no secret that America is experiencing a loneliness epidemic. Though most of us are surrounded by people, digitally connected and relationally busy, few of us have actually experienced the deep and life-giving reality of authentic community. In Ephesians 4, Paul paints a picture of what Christian community can look like. Rather than giving us model, brand, or method, Paul describes community as a body. And just like a body, each person within a community has a part to play in supporting those around them. But also like a body, if one person is unhealthy and unwilling to change, the rest of the community can get infected. Lying, anger, stealing, foul language, and bitterness can cause damage to the communities we find ourselves in. Because of this, true community is a risk. But it's also the way in which we grow more like Christ, accept his love, and share that love with those around us.
Great. I do remember it now. No, I thought it was good. I thought it was helpful. I think the whole framework for the Vision series is this idea that a lot of us are what we're after at our church is real transformation. And I think over the past 3 years, we've put a lot of emphasis on the practices, which was great. And I think we needed that, and
we still need it.
And we still need it, but we need to put the practices in the context of, that's one piece of, that's why we call it piece by piece. It's one piece of the puzzle that puts us all in line with the will of God and into the image of Jesus. Community, though, is the other important piece. So when Paul describes the church as a body in Ephesians 4, I think a lot of us, it's a good thing to sit and think about the implications of that. So I like you had talked about each body part, not just serving a role, but also like what happens when one body part gets infected or affected or whatever. And Paul names, I think, those five things that seem really rare. Like it's easy to read that list and think my community is not infected by those diseases, lying and bitterness and stealing. No, we don't steal from people or whatever. But the idea behind all of those, I think, is what makes community really difficult and why I would argue most of us are not actually living like a body. Very few of us have actually experienced real community. Most of us are very familiar with what it's like to be in a group of people, even regularly for years, but few of us know what it's like to actually be a part of a real community that is life-giving and dependent on other body parts and things like that. So
one paradigm, and I know you have another one. Maybe you were contrasting groups with community or something like that. One paradigm that's always been helpful for me is David Brooks, his whole tribalism versus community, and he's like, tribalism is the evil twin of community, and so in many ways, tribes aren't bad. But tribalism is this idea where, and I think the line from David Brooks is community is built upon mutual love. Tribalism is built upon mutual hate. And so tribalism, which is what works on today's algorithms, you gather around what you hate. It's like the enemy of my enemy is my friend type of situation. And so it's all stirred up, and it's a lot of this anger and frustration and malice. Oh, we both have the same malice towards the same people. So let's keep hanging out. But community is mutual affection. It's loving, serving. It's more sacrificial in nature. It's more about what you're for than what you're against. And I understand the pushback against that, because even Paul here, he's against a lot of things. So like, I think that's sometimes a cliche. Like we want to be known more about what we're for. We need to also know what we are against. I think it was N.T. Wright in his commentary on, because there's a lot of don'ts in Ephesians 4, 25 through 32. And so he was like, let's take a step back. This sounds really negative. And especially as like people who love grace, which we are Christians who love grace, we get a little nervous about too many oughts and don'ts. But he likened it to like when you're building a statue, like you just have, marble. What you have to do is you have to take out the negative space. You have to remove things in order for the beauty of what's there to be on display.
Mm-hmm.
And so these are the taking off. He's getting a lot more in, earlier in Ephesians 4, he's like, take off your former way of life. What's so helpful is like, what does that mean, Paul? Okay, let me give you a few examples. Here's some things to actually get rid of. And I even think like lying, I like how we talked about on Sunday. It could be exaggerating. It could just be withholding. It's not outright lies per se, but it's posturing. There's so many different ways we can lie in community and thus not fully be known and therefore not fully loved.
Yeah, misrepresenting yourself. Yeah, okay, a lot of thoughts. I think that would it be fair? Do you think it'd be fair to say that genuine community, if we're going to use the David Brooks framework, is more inward focused and tribalism tends to be more outward focused, like external? So like if you have an inward community, I mean, if you have a group that's focused, because Paul seems a lot, you could trace this theme about almost every area he talks about Christian community. Peter does this too in 1 Peter. Actually, he goes a little bit more explicit, but Paul in Romans 12, here I think in Romans 4, he's talking about how Ephesians 4, he's talking about how the community is designed to live. All the instruction has to do with how they relate to each other. And even in 1 Corinthians, he says, I'm talking to you. I'm not talking to the outsiders.
Right.
In 1 Peter,
I see what you're saying.
Peter's saying,
the living stones.
Yeah, he's talking about the living stones. You are the cornerstones. You're built on the living stone.
Jesus is the cornerstone.
Jesus is the cornerstone. But he says, conduct yourselves. He talks about conducting yourselves in a respectable way to outsiders so that when they look inside, they can see that you're honorable amongst each other and you're honoring to them even and things like that. So I think what's happening now socially is a lot of people are in tribal groups, I would say not authentic community, but tribal groups that are so focused on what's happening out there that there's this false sense of camaraderie and closeness that isn't actually real because you're not doing anything communal. And so Paul's argument is like, if you're going to live in community and grow into the image of Jesus, you need to focus on how you're treating each other. And when that happens, then inevitably you get to like, oh, this is why community is hard. It's because we're not just shouting at other people or anything like that. And then the mission flows outside of that. So like the way that you conduct yourselves internally will impact your ability to invite others in through evangelism and things like that.
So like the metaphor I used of mirrors, not microscopes.
Yes.
Essentially taking that a step further. So mirrors to ourselves, but also as a community, we're using mirrors like, hey guys, before we tell the world what to do, are we living out this way? Is that what you're saying?
Yes,
so like a lot of times our communities, it's really, you and I talk about this a lot. We could easily get more applause or amens if we just talk about how terrible the world out there is.
Right.
But we just realize our call is not to preach to the choir. It's to hold up a mirror and say, what is God saying to us? How can we be formed? And so it's a lot more challenging, a lot more offensive to those in the room. Generally, we want preachers to be offensive to those outside of the room.
Right.
But that's a price we're willing to pay.
But that's why community is vital for transformation. Is if you have all of the, like, community ends up being a crucible of sorts where you enter into a space with other people who are pursuing the same goal as you, which is to be formed into the image of Jesus through service to one another, love for one another, all of that kind of stuff. Eventually things come up, whether it's conflict or disagreement, or, you start using Ephesians 4 as a mirror and you notice where your own faults are, and then other people see that as well. And then now all of a sudden you have a starting place where it's like, okay, I tend to misrepresent myself. When I'm here, I'm not honest about my sins and my weaknesses and my week that I just had because I want to make myself appear differently to those around me. And that becomes like something you can work, like you can be formed out of, where it's like people realize eventually someone's going to see through that. They're going to call you out on it. And then that's when community happens.
Right.
That's when the growth happens and the transformation, the grace that's applied to you through others. You receive the love of Jesus through others in that. But yeah.
We had a great group last night about this. Lots of input. It was just a great night. And part of it was us. I liked your question, like, how have you seen community happen in this group? And the reality is our group has been together, some of us, for like 6-7 years. And so we have gone through conflict. We've hit the chaos and emptying and all of that. And there is this deep joy that we have because we've been through those things together. And one person said, I used to believe the lie. This goes back to teaching. I used to believe the lie that true community means there's no conflict.
Mm-hmm.
But in reality, actually, true community means there is conflict. Like, I don't trust a relationship yet if we haven't, and you don't like make conflict for conflict's sake. But whenever it arrives, that's the true test. What are we going to do now?
Mm-hmm.
Joseph Hellerman, I try to find a space to add this quote. We've done this for years. We bring up this quote. There's a long version. The last line that's just really powerful. He says, long-term relationships are the crucible of genuine progress in the Christian life. People who stay grow. Yes and amen. And we want to be sure there are times and places for you to move on.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why I'm looking forward to the peacemaking practice in the fall. But as a general rule, I think our culture bails too soon.
Mm-hmm.
I would add, I almost had a 2-point sermon and then I realized it didn't fit Ephesians 4. So I didn't, in this process, because I love that line so much, it's like people who stay grow and people who play grow. Because there's also something about like having fun together and doing something. I loved your question in the Together Guide this week. Have you considered outside of Sunday and this night, are you going to do something else outside of these two, organized times? How can you just like enjoy each other's company?
Yeah.
And what we loved is like, oh, we're doing that. We do that as a community. I know I threw a lot at you, but
no, that's helpful. I think, there's all this to say. A lot of us, I think, growing up in the church are used to a model of small groups that doesn't quite map onto this very well, where they're either, in my experience, I could be wrong, and this is a broad generalization, so I am wrong. They're either purely focused on teaching and Bible study. So community is a win if the task is accomplished, meaning you learn something about the Bible you didn't know before, or you're taught something new, or whatever. You feel like you've done something.
Where like the beginning part where we're hanging out feels like a waste to them. Like,
yes.
What are we doing? Like, get into the Word.
Right. Or the other end of the spectrum is it's just all about relationships. We just want you to connect with other people, get to know people, do life together. That phrase, which it's like, what does that mean? I don't know what that means. But there's no real focus or emphasis. So it's either like, I've been in part of groups where that was the only thing. It was just a Bible study. You show up and you study the Bible, and that's the thing that happens. There's no expectation for you to really connect to others or relate. As long as you say something and share in group time, in discussion time, then it's a win. And then the other side, it's like, we're not going to do any of that. We're just going to hang out. We're going to go play ultimate Frisbee or whatever. We're going to take our kids to the park and play or whatever. But there's nothing substantial. You don't feel like you're doing anything. You're just around other bodies. So I think what we're arguing is, when you look at what Paul sees, what he describes in Ephesians 4 is, it's both of those things where there is teaching and reflection and things like that, but there's also interrelational conflict and like things that come up and happen when you're around other people and sharing, that isn't like an extreme on a spectrum, but they're actually two parts of something that like is totally unique. And that is a community of people who are committed to following Jesus alongside each other within safe parameters. So there's boundaries and expectations. That's where the no's and the don'ts and do nots come in. Those are there to protect the community.
Right.
So like, that's the inward focus, is like these commands are given to protect others in the group. That I think is a very unique type of group that I just haven't seen a lot of churches try and foster, because
it's messy.
It's messy. And the other thing that you named is it takes so much time.
Moments and marathons.
So like, we're not wired. We're so wired for immediate success and instant satisfaction that the type of community we long for and that Paul describes, we wouldn't be able to accept if we were a part of it, because it just, yeah.
And we're wired to label things too soon. So I think when I think about my relationships I've had in the past, and maybe let's go down the rabbit hole of what pastors having relationships in church. It's a lot to navigate. But one mistake I made early on, and I mentioned this in our group last night, is I tried to label friendships too soon, where there would be times like, oh man, you're my best friend or whatever, or, oh, you're this, you're that. And the reality is, it's like, let's not pressure each other, because what happens is like, then it's the Bonhoeffer line, like the dream of community actually kills the reality of community.
Yeah.
And so we just want to like label revival right when revival happened. It's like, let's just keep doing the thing that we're focusing on, not like sit back and label. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I think with friendships and relationships, man, you're my all. No, let's, we're in community.
Or the inverse. It's like you said
True.
this one dumb thing, so you're the dumb person who says dumb things.
Good point.
And then you come into the group expecting.
Erwin McManus. I feel like I quoted him last week too. I don't know why. But in this book called Mind Shift or something, I even forgot. But there's one line I thought was great. He said there's only 2 ways friends like stay together for decades. He's like, I've lost so many relationships throughout my life. He's a pastor in LA. I don't watch him enough to know if I approve everything he's ever said. But this was a really good line. He's like, either to stay together with a group of people for a long period of time, either none of you grows or all of you grows.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times we don't allow people to grow in our mind. So like you just said, beginning of group, somebody said a dumb thing. We label them and go, that's the dumb guy.
Mm-hmm.
But what if all of a sudden he learns and he grows, but you don't allow him? I was reading in my quiet time this morning in Mark, Jesus he was rejected by his hometown, by his family, because like, no, I remember 12-year-old you. You can't grow in my mind. I think that's crucial for us. We need to constantly give each other the grace. There's new mercies every morning. I'm not going to hold your past against you. I'm going to allow you to grow and change and transform. It's like when I was in junior high, I think one of the most embarrassing memories of my life at Queen Creek Junior High, I decided one day I wanted to be preppy. Remember that day? Like when preppy was, I don't know. Yeah.
The double polos with the pop collars.
Yeah. American Eagle,
yeah.
Aeropostale. But I was the Air Jordan guy. Literally everything was always Air Jordan. Shoes, pants, shirt, everything. So one day it was dumb because I didn't like slowly.
You just went. Yeah.
Dude, I went for it. I even did my hair different.
Yeah.
Like dude, the whole day people were like, who are you? What are you doing?
Yeah.
Which, there's some wisdom, but I do think even within church communities, we can like hold people and go, no, you're not allowed to change. And we need to allow people to change what they wear, No.
Yeah, it goes to one of the things you mentioned on Sunday was M. Scott Peck's 4 stages of community. So this was something we got from he's a Christian. He was a Christian psychologist. And he wrote this book called A Different Drum, which is really helpful, but he talks about how to make peace and how communities develop. And he's the one who actually argues there is a vast difference between a group and a community. And one of them is a lot more rare than the other. It's written, I mean, he's a Christian, but it's not written for Christians specifically, if that makes sense. So it's just about groups in general and organizations and things like that. But he argues that there's 4 stages that every group has to go through in order to become a community.
So is he using group positively? So you're saying it starts as a group that can lead to a community?
Yes. Yeah. He says that every gathering, whether it's a business meeting, a board meeting, or a church small group, or a mom's group, or whatever, every like group starts off as a group. And he calls this the pseudo community stage, where the biggest thing is it's task oriented. So it goes to the Bible study thing. As long as we check the box and get the task done, then we're good to go. And I think that's where like together groups, like we do have a task in our together groups, and that is to get through the guide and to be formed and to discuss and reflect and all that kind of stuff, do the practices. But we also have a deeper goal in our groups, which is that we want to have the relational connections and grow over the long haul and give people space and things like that. What he says is here people come with expectations in this stage. So they're walking in with this idea that I'm going to meet my perfect friends and they're going to meet all my needs and I'm going to meet their needs and they're going to be okay with me. They're going to allow me to grow. That's usually what people also assume, is that they're going to be a part of a group that's just okay with whoever they are, whether it's good or bad, and they're going to be with them throughout the whole process.
And while it feels like all of that is true, right? That honeymoon phase, it feels like, oh, we found it.
That will happen. Yeah. In the honeymoon, everything's going well. There's pleasantries. You talk about the weather because everyone's afraid. Everyone's misrepresenting themselves. They're afraid to say something wrong, to stir up trouble, or to, whatever. They're kind of walking on eggshells. And this is where Bonhoeffer would say, like, your idolized community then forces you to demand that from others. So you're then putting a demand on other people rather than a demand on yourself to meet other people's needs and things like that.
Well, and then the hard part, going back to lying and then pseudo community, and we present a pseudo self. Deep down, we know we're lying.
Yeah.
And so deep down, you may always feel this, you will feel this anxiety. You will feel like no one loves you, even though they've told you, I love you. That's because you haven't shared who you really are. So, you know, deep down, no, you don't actually know me. Therefore, there's no way you can love me. And I'm the Tim Keller paradigm, fully known, fully loved. In the gospel, we can be fully known and fully loved. But most of us are used to relationships. If you're fully known, there goes any chance to be fully loved. But in order to be fully loved means I can't be fully known. But deep down in our core, our soul won't allow that. Like our soul will know I'm missing something. I can't receive your love because you haven't even received my true self.
Right. And that goes to the groups, the tribalism, that kind of thing. Like for how most of us define groups, that's fine. That's how it's supposed to stay. But how we're trying to define groups based on what Paul says in Ephesians 4 is how do you create a space that is safe enough to where people can let themselves fully be known and they know that they'll receive grace and love in return, not acceptance, but or whatever, but acceptance,
affirmation. Not like it's great that you're lying what you're saying. If we wanted to make a Tinders, we're fine with pseudo community. And don't talk about anything hard. But we're trying to make disciples. So chaos is next.
So Peck argues that the next stage inevitably is some form of chaos, which could be a lot of things, but it's anything that basically disrupts that pseudo community, the pleasantries, the surface level. It could be conflict. That's the most obvious one. It could be a disagreement, like a theological disagreement. Someone says something that you don't find to be true, or it doesn't match your experience, or that's one thing he names in the book that I love is in the pseudo community, everyone's just okay with Christian cliches. So it's like, if you bring up a problem, everyone says, just give it to God, or like God has a plan for your life or whatever. There's no real, like, that sucks. Like that does seem like God let you down. I don't know what, like there's no honesty in the chaos stage. Now people start calling that out and they're saying, no, I have a real problem. Don't give me a spiritual Band-Aid. Like that's not the issue. It could be logistics. It could be no one's willing to help, contribute to the meal or host, or you have a kid issue or something like that.
True.
For our groups, it could be anything like that. This is where people get apathetic. They get frustrated. And there's another sociologist from World War II era who's British, and he argued that people do a variety of things, but to summarize, they either fight each other or the leader, or they ostracize one person, the person causing the disruption. They form little cliques and slowly start to leave them out. They flight, they flee, they leave, they quit out of frustration or out of fear or whatever. Or they just kind of rebel against the model altogether. So they leave not like quietly. They push it back all on the leader. It's the leader's job to fix all of this. Or they just reject the model altogether. Like we've had people in our church say like, your small group model just doesn't work because I face this conflict and conflict shouldn't happen. Therefore your system is broken. So all of that will happen. And at that point, there's really only one way forward. Peck argues you have to go to stage 3, which is emptying or emptiness. And that's where this is where a group can actually become a community. We have to be willing to empty ourselves of expectations from others. We have to empty ourselves of our impulse to control others, which goes back to the first thing of like not letting other people change is a form of control over them. You're trying to keep them in a box so that you can feel better about yourself, all that stuff. And then once you actually let go of prejudice and control and all those things, then you become stage 4, which is an actual community.
It's also, I'm thinking through the paradigm that Edward Friedman gives of the cycles of anxiety and how like there's something happens. And so we all react. So that's in the chaos stage, reactivity, which then people run to a herding instinct, blame, displacement. And then they look for a quick fix. Usually the quick fix is let's go back to a pseudo community. Let's put a Band-Aid on it. And then what they like is leaders who say, yes, this Band-Aid is good. Yes, let's go back to pseudo community. Yes, let's not stir the pot. And so Edward Friedman would argue we need a non-anxious leader. We need differentiated leaders that go, look, I know you're not going to like me for this, but you actually need to press into this chaos. Don't go back to pleasantries. There's something beautiful that could happen here. But he would argue especially in our like democratic age, people just vote for the person who, and I'm not just in general, we all want leaders who will tell us what we want to hear. And so it's like, no, just I'm going to vote for the leader. I'm going to follow the leader. That gives me those nice quick fixes. But the problem is you're killing yourself, right? This injury or this poison is not going to be fixed with the Band-Aid. You need to go through surgery. So all of that's hard, and that's what brings pressure on leaders. And so does the leader budge? It's a lot. The Failure of Nerve by Edward Freeman is a wonderful book. Pretty heavy read, but it goes through a lot of that as well. So, yeah, have community, guys. We're selling it really well again.
Yeah, I think this is why, at our Together groups, we're trying to make it really clear for people that it's not like we are asking you to commit. It's not just like you can pop in and out when you're free. I mean, you can, we're not going to arrest you, but
right.
Also like I think that does damage to the group and it does damage to you. There are expectations with our groups. Yeah.
Yeah. I think this is why we give the option of covenanting, because there is something about like, no, I'm going. And I know for some people, a covenant doesn't mean much to them. So like, why would I do that? Because if I really don't like it, I'm just going to budge. But like in a very real way, and this is totally different in severity, but like ultimately I know with my wife, like I've covenanted with her. So we're going to make this work. And there's something about having that view. Again, I think it could be toxic by church demanding like ultimate loyalty. You can never leave anywhere else. But there's something about people who stay grow. And so it's like, I love that we've made this commitment, man, through the thick and thin, through the hard days, I'm still going to press in because I've made this commitment to each other. Because I know that that's where genuine peace comes from. Peace doesn't come from running from place to place. It comes, like the vow of stability. You have any thoughts on that? Like, and it's a really rare thing these days.
Yeah.
But it was in a moment where a lot of priests and monks were just going from town to town, and they realized that, right? And they're like, let's take a vow of stability.
And they were chasing status and wealth, and they were going where the money was going. My understanding is that was the cultural moment. So Saint Benedict had a group of
this was like 400 or 500.
Yeah.
80.
A group of young monks who he basically said, we're going to take a vow and we're going to stay here no matter how good things get or how bad things get, because they recognized that first of all their calling was to a place, and that wasn't to say I'm not saying that has to be our case. People move for good reasons all the time,
Right?
But I think there is something about committing, at least for our purposes, to a group. So when people join a group, we ask them to commit for at least the season.
Yeah.
So what is that, like 4 to 6 months, depending on the semester, but stick with it for the season. And then if it doesn't work, let's talk about why and figure out, and then, kind of go from there. Because you're right. I think a lot of times people sign up for a group expecting that it's going to fix their problems right away, and it doesn't. So they get apathetic or frustrated, or they sign up for a group and everything does fix their problems right away, and then something disrupts it, the conflict or whatever, and they're uncomfortable. And I think we would say both of those things are normal. It's normal to not have your needs met right away. It's not going to feel magical. It might, but it's not going to feel magical forever, right away at least. It's going to take a lot of time, and there will be ups and downs. There will be conflict, but that's when formation happens. It's not when nothing's happening. It's when there is conflict and disruption and discomfort and resistance, even if it's internal resistance. That's one thing we said. I said at the training, the chaos can be internal. It can be individual. So it could be you feeling chaos when no one else is because you are uncomfortable fasting or something like that.
And I would even say some of the biggest growth I've had in my life is actually the other person never changed, but I learned about suffering with Christ. I learned about patience. I learned about loving them despite them never loving me back, right? Like there's always a way to grow in community, even if you have someone, it's that like the testimony with Mark and Mandy, it's 100%. It's not 50-50. It's like, no, I need to do my part and I will grow through that. I also think it's worth mentioning in our piece by piece, this is why we have the Holy Spirit in that paradigm. When we're talking about vow stability and we're saying this isn't for everyone, that's why it's like, listen to the Holy Spirit. Maybe the Holy Spirit is inviting you to this, or maybe not. That's why we're not legalistic. That's why it's like, no, for my life, this is a big piece, but we're holding that open-handed and going, maybe God's inviting you to pray about this, discern this. I think that gives us that freedom to give these types of opportunities for people to step into, but then know, like, we're not claiming if you don't do this, you are not following Jesus.
If you don't live in community or
no, I'm talking about vow stability. So like Paul himself went from town to town because he was called to be a missionary.
Yeah.
So fair point.
Yeah.
But my rebuttal is fair too.
Yeah. I mean, I think you could make a strong case to say that if you're not ever willing to live in community, then there's a good chance you don't actually understand the gospel. Because I don't think you can understand the gospel. You cannot read Ephesians, which lays out what the gospel is in a cosmic way, and walk away thinking like, I just don't need other people. Like,
right.
You are saved into a group of other people. So it just doesn't.
Not just a group. Ephesians 3, a group of people you don't like, people who are not
Yes.
like you,
Yeah.
Gentiles and Jews learning to live together.
Paul had to tell that person in your small group, hey, stop stealing, dude. What are you
Yeah.
doing? Don't do that. So this is not a perfect, I mean, going back to, we romanticize the early church so much, but they were dealing with issues like this, and people were getting drunk off the communion wine, and there's all sorts of disorder happening. But I think Paul recognized, no, the gospel is a cosmic thing. You need to embody that in your week to week, like in your gatherings. You need to reflect that it's you can't do this outside of other people. So
I think one pervasive lie, going back to teaching, see what I'm trying to do? I'm trying to show how it's
Connect it
all
all.
pieced together.
Yeah.
I think one pervasive lie that I totally get, but I just want to name as I've talked to people, there is this lie that the grass is greener on the other side. And if I just move to this state, that's pretty pervasive in our moment. And I know like people on social media make money by saying, hey guys, I moved to Tennessee and my life is so much better. But we as pastors actually get to know these people. And sometimes it's true, right? Like us moving back to Queen Creek has been life-changing. So again, it's that whole, it's not a perfect rule. But often we talk to those people and they're using a social media persona online to get people to do something, but they hate, like their actual truth is like, no, I don't know anybody here. I just moved. I'm alone, but I have to put on this persona and, so I just think there is a lie. If I just moved there, everything will get better. No, Christ can transform you right where you're at. And often, if we want to be formed by Jesus, it involves a crucible. So like to acknowledge your moment where you're at right now is hard doesn't mean that it's bad. Like hard is holy.
Right. Yeah. I think I would say moving is not bad inherently.
I'm not thinking of anybody in my church who has said, I'm trying to move, but I've just noticed that.
That is a common thing. I think moving because of conflict or because of discomfort or because of apathy, those are bad reasons to move. Opportunities and mission and event, all that stuff is great. I think like people are called to certain places, but even there, like if you move, I think your goal should be to get to root yourself in a place where you can grow and serve others and build long-term relationships and things like that. So yeah, it is. I think what we've done in our culture now is because we're so transient, we've just removed that piece of the puzzle, the community part, and said, well, that's just not that important because we have this false sense that we already have community because we're so digitally connected and relationally busy and all those things, that we have this idea that it's an illusion. It's an illusion. That's not what we're talking. We're talking about something completely different almost.
Yeah. Any final thoughts?
I don't think so.
Wonderful.
Are hard.
They're hard, but worth it.
Yeah.
All right. Comment of the day. By the way, no one knew your Christmas movie. No one said what it was.
Yeah, man.
I think you dreamt it. I think we have a great movie on our hands that we need to make.
There was one scene. I know. I'll look it up. I'll find it later.
There are times where he talks to me and goes, oh, maybe I dreamt this whole thing. I don't know if this actually happened. That's a real thing in your life.
I have very realistic, vivid dreams.
Okay, Joseph. All right. So what is or Daniel, what is a comment of the day?
Transient.
Wow. All right.
Transient. I won't tell you how to spell it because I'm not sure I know how to spell it.
Exactly. All right. Grace and peace to you guys. Thank you. And we'll see you on the next one.